If you think everything in your life is running smoothly, try having your perfect family drama torn apart by an unexpected event. Hi, I'm Emily Baker, and I thought I had it all together: great career, loving boyfriend, and a family that, while complicated, was manageable. But that all changed when my little sister Sarah started planning her wedding. I was supposed to be her maid of honor, but instead, I found myself in the role of peacekeeper, trying to keep everyone happy as the tension with our dad, Robert, grew worse. Since his divorce, he'd fallen into a pit of poor decisions, and nothing seemed to pull him out. His new girlfriend, Brenda, was the worst of those decisions. From the moment I met her, something didn't sit right, and I couldn't shake the feeling that she was only going to make things worse. As Sarah anxiously asked, "Do you think Dad will actually show up sober?" I wished I could reassure her, but deep down I wasn't sure hope would be enough. Where do I even begin? I'm 31 years old, doing well in my marketing career, and I thought I had everything in my life under control, especially the family drama. But all that changed when my little sister Sarah started planning her wedding. I was excited to help her with the big day, but soon it became clear that things were going to be much more complicated than I expected. The shadow of our dad, Robert, loomed over everything. Ever since his divorce, he hadn't been the same. He had spiraled into a pit of alcohol and poor choices, and nothing seemed to pull him out. Among the worst decisions, in my opinion, was his new girlfriend, Brenda. From the very first moment I met her, I got an uncomfortable feeling in the pit of my stomach. There was something off about her that I couldn't quite explain. One afternoon, Sarah and I were out picking flowers for the wedding, and she turned to me with worry clear in her eyes. "Emily, do you think Dad will actually show up sober?" she asked, her voice full of hope yet laced with doubt. I tried to reassure her, even though I wasn't sure I believed the words myself. "I really hope so," I said, my tone careful. "For your sake, I do. But deep down, I wasn't sure hope would be enough." As the wedding day neared, I found myself in a role I didn't expect: less of a maid of honor, more of a referee, constantly trying to manage everyone's emotions and keep the peace. My boyfriend, David, was my rock during all of this. He kept reminding me to breathe and let go of control. "Babe, you can't control everything," he'd say, his voice steady and calm. I know, I'd reply, though my mind never fully calmed. But if Dad ruins this day for Sarah, I'll never forgive him. Little did I know, things were about to get much worse. About a week before the wedding, I met up with my best friend Laura for coffee. Laura had always been the one I could count on, the voice of reason, and I needed her more than ever. "What's really going on with you and Brenda?" she asked, giving me a look that told me she already suspected something was off. I lowered my voice and glanced around as if someone might overhear. "There's something not right about her, Laura. The way she latched onto Dad so quickly, always whispering things in his ear. And get this, I overheard her on the phone talking about some big score coming up." Laura's eyes widened. "You think she's scamming him?" "I don't know," I admitted, my stomach tightening. "But I'm going to find out." That conversation lit a fire inside me, and I couldn't let it go. I spent late nights scrolling through social media, making quiet phone calls to Dad's old friends, trying to piece together any information I could find. The more I uncovered, the more I realized I was unraveling a web I wasn't sure I wanted to get caught in. Then, the day before the wedding, Sarah and I were at the venue, making some last-minute checks, when Dad and Brenda showed up unannounced. They strolled in like they owned the place. "Daddy!" Sarah squealed, rushing over to hug him, her voice full of warmth. I stayed back, watching them with a growing unease. Brenda's eyes were darting around the room, as if she was taking inventory, sizing up everything. Dad, slurring his words, pulled Sarah into an embrace. "My little girl all grown up," he said, his voice thick with alcohol. My heart sank. He was already drunk, and the wedding hadn't even started yet. I could feel the weight of everything crashing down on me. This wasn't just a wedding anymore, it was a battlefield. And I was standing in the middle of it, watching as the people I loved most seemed to spiral out of control. "Robert, darling, let's go check out the bar," Brenda said smoothly, giving me a smug glance as they walked away together. I felt a surge of anger rise up in me, but I tried to keep it together for Sarah's sake. Sarah turned to me, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Emily..." I didn't let her finish. I pulled her into a hug, whispering, "Don't worry, sis. Tomorrow is about you and Matt. Nothing's going to ruin it. If only I had known how wrong I was. They say there's always a calm before the storm." Well, our storm was brewing, and it was about to hit with the force of a Category 7 hurricane. As I stood there holding my baby sister Sarah close, I made a silent promise to myself no matter what I would protect her happiness. At the time, I had no idea that I'd be fighting for much more than just a perfect wedding day. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Sarah looked absolutely radiant, and for a brief moment, all the family drama seemed to disappear. Standing beside her, watching her exchange vows with Matt, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could get through this day without any problems. I wanted so badly for Sarah to have one perfect day, but that fragile hope was shattered the moment we walked into the reception. I saw him almost immediately. Dad standing by the bar, already drunk, with Brenda clinging to him like a lifeline. My heart sank. "You okay?" David whispered, sensing my unease. "I've got to hold it together for Sarah," I muttered, forcing a smile. But deep down, I knew it was only a matter of time before something went terribly wrong. As the night wore on, the tension in the room became unbearable. Dad's laughter grew louder, his movements more and more sloppy. Brenda's eyes kept scanning the room, a strange gleam in them that made my skin crawl. Something wasn't right, and I could feel it. "Emily, Dad's making a scene," Sarah whispered, her voice filled with worry. "I'll handle it," I said, trying to sound confident. I walked over to where Dad was attempting a very unsteady Macarena, stumbling and laughing like nothing was wrong. "Dad, let's get some fresh air," I suggested, trying to stay calm. "Nonsense," he slurred. "I'm celebrating my baby girl's big day." He tried to twirl but nearly fell over. Brenda appeared at his side, tightening her grip on his arm. "Leave him alone, he's having fun," she said sharply. "This isn't about fun, it's about showing respect for Sarah on her special day," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Brenda's eyes narrowed as she sneered. "You think you're so perfect, don't you?" Always trying to control everything. The argument escalated quickly. We moved to a quieter corner of the room, but our voices kept rising with each exchange. "You don't know anything about our family," I spat at her, my patience gone. "I know one thing," she hissed. "Your daddy prefers my company over yours." Something inside me snapped. "Is that before or after you drained him of his money, Brenda?" I shot back, my voice trembling with anger. Her face twisted with rage, and before I could react, she lunged at me, taking off her heeled sandal and swinging it at my head. For a moment, everything seemed to slow down. I felt the sharp impact as the heel connected with my temple, pain radiating through my skull. People screamed, and chaos erupted around us. Guests screamed and scattered, chairs were overturned, and the whole scene became a blur of noise and movement. Through the mayhem, all I could focus on was Sarah. How had it come to this? I had promised to protect her happiness, but now her wedding day was turning into a nightmare. I saw Sarah's horrified face as Matt held her back. Security burst into the chaos, quickly restraining Brenda as her enraged screams filled the air, hurling obscenities at anyone daring to approach. It was utter pandemonium. I stood paralyzed, my mind struggling to process what had just unfolded. The police arrived soon after, leading Brenda away in handcuffs, but the scene remained seared into my mind. For a split second, I locked eyes with Dad. He stood there, looking more broken than I'd ever seen him. His face was pale, haunted by the weight of what had just transpired. That was the moment it hit me. Nothing would ever be the same again. The days that followed felt like an endless blur, each one bleeding into the next. Between the police reports, interviews, and sleepless nights, I was caught in a nightmare I couldn't wake from. Every sound, no matter how small, made my heart race. The image of Brenda charging at me with that sandal, fury in her eyes, replayed in my mind, again and again, each time more vivid than before. David, my constant support, became my anchor. He held me through the nightmares, whispered calming words when my breath hitched in fear. "You're safe now, Emily," he'd say. But how could I feel safe? How could I, when my father's girlfriend had tried to hurt me at my sister's wedding? How does one heal from that? Sarah, understandably, was falling apart. When I went to see her a week later, she couldn't even look at me. "All those months of planning," she whispered, her voice thick with sorrow. "And for what? My wedding will always be remembered as the day someone tried to hurt my sister." I felt my heart sink. "Sarah, I'm so sorry," I said, the weight of the situation crushing me. She shook her head, trying to force back the tears. "I know it's not your fault, Emily, but I just can't shake the feeling that our family is cursed." Meanwhile, Dad was in a state of complete denial. His calls came non-stop, each one more infuriating than the last. "Emily, sweetie, let's not blow this out of proportion," he'd say. "Brenda was just upset, she didn't mean any harm." His defense of her, after everything she'd done, set my blood on fire. But nothing compared to when he showed up at my apartment a week later, drunk and stumbling, reeking of alcohol. I opened the door to find him swaying, his eyes glazed over with too much liquor. "Dad, you need to leave," I said, trying to steady my trembling hands. "Come on, pumpkin, we're family. We need to stick together." He slurred, his voice pitiful. I felt something harden inside me, a cold realization dawning on me. "No, Dad, we're done. I can't do this anymore." The hurt in his eyes almost made me hesitate, but I stayed firm. Closing the door between us, I knew it was the right decision, painful as it was. Laura, my relentless best friend, had started digging into Brenda's past. What she found left me speechless, and I knew it was just the beginning. "Emily, look at this," Laura said one night, spreading papers across my coffee table. "Brenda's got a record, assault, fraud, you name it." I scanned the documents, feeling sick to my stomach. "How did Dad not know about this?" Laura hesitated, biting her lip. "That's the thing, Emily. I think he did." The truth hit me like a ton of bricks. We found joint bank accounts, suspicious money transfers, evidence that Dad wasn't just a victim in all of this, he was an accomplice. Telling Sarah what we discovered was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. We sat together in her kitchen, the wedding gift still sitting in the corner untouched. "I can't believe it," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "How could he do this to us?" "I don't even know him anymore." "I don't know who Dad is either," I said softly. "But we need to protect ourselves now." Sarah looked at me, her expression shifting to one of determination. "I'm with you, Emily. Always." Despite her words, the guilt weighed heavily on me. I had exposed our father's crimes, and in doing so, I might have destroyed his life. But then again, hadn't he already done that to himself? The mix of anger, confusion, and guilt was too much for me to handle alone, so I decided to seek help. That's how I found myself sitting in a therapist's office, trying to make sense of it all. "Emily, it's normal to feel conflicted," my therapist, Dr. Evans, reassured me during one of our sessions. "You've been through something traumatic. You're grieving the loss of the father you thought you knew." I stared down at my hands, feeling torn. But shouldn't I hate him after everything he's done? "There's no should when it comes to emotions," she explained kindly. "What's important is that you acknowledge how you feel and work through it." Working through it sounded easy, but it wasn't. Still, as I left Dr. Evans's office that day, I felt a small glimmer of hope. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Maybe, just maybe, I could rebuild something positive from the ruins of my family's past. 4 months after the wedding disaster, I found myself in a place I never thought I'd be: happy. Despite everything that had happened, I had a strong support system. Sarah, David, Laura, and I had become an unbreakable team. Our bond was stronger than ever. One night, while we were having dinner at my apartment, Sarah raised her glass. "To new beginnings," she toasted. "And to family," I added, "the one we choose," clinking glasses with my sister. The media was all over Brenda's trial. It was a circus. Sitting in that courtroom, my stomach was in knots as Brenda's true nature was revealed for everyone to see. Dad sat beside me, looking completely stunned as her history of crimes came to light. But the real shock was yet to come. Laura and I have been working hard gathering evidence of Dad's involvement in Brenda's schemes. During the trial, our lawyer stood up and addressed the court. "Your Honor, we have documentation proving Robert Baker's involvement in Mississippi, Lang's fraudulent activities." As the legal battle trudged on, my life unexpectedly took a positive turn. My career was soaring. One Sunday afternoon, my boss called me into his office. "Emily," he said with a smile, "we're promoting you to Senior Davidating Director. Your resilience and creativity this past year have been remarkable." I left his office in a daze, feeling like I had been handed a lifeline amidst the chaos. I immediately called David to share the news. "Babe, that's amazing! I'm so proud of you!" His excitement was contagious, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was finally gaining some solid ground. Amidst all the turmoil, Sarah and Matt made a beautiful decision. They chose to renew their vows. This time, it was a small, intimate ceremony in their backyard, surrounded only by their closest friends and family. "Second time's the charm," Matt joked, making Sarah laugh as they exchanged rings again. Watching them, I felt a wave of peace wash over me. We were healing, one step at a time. The day of Brenda's sentencing arrived, and the courtroom was charged with tension. I sat there, reflecting on how far we had come since that fateful wedding day. The pain and betrayal we had faced were heavy, but somehow, we had come through it stronger. We were moving forward. It wasn't easy, but we had found our way back to each other. The storm had passed, and now, we were finally finding peace again. When it was my turn to speak, I stood up to deliver my victim impact statement. My hands shook, but my voice remained steady. "The scars from that night run deep," I began, "but they have made me stronger." My gaze locked on Brenda, and I knew this was my moment to reclaim my life. I'm here today not as a victim, but as a survivor. As Brenda was led away in handcuffs, a deep sense of closure filled me. It was as if a painful chapter of my life was finally being sealed. But the real celebration came a month later. Sarah, Matt, David, Laura, and I gathered at my favorite restaurant to celebrate my promotion and everything we had overcome together. "To Emily," Laura raised her glass, her smile wide. "The strongest person I know." I couldn't let her finish without adding to the toast. I looked around at the faces of those who had stood by me during the hardest year of my life. "To all of us," I said, my voice thick with emotion, "for showing me that family isn't just about blood, it's about loyalty and love." As we laughed and shared stories, I felt something shift inside me. I realized how much had changed. The past year had been a nightmare, but in an unexpected way, it had also been a gift. It taught me who really mattered, revealed how strong I could be, and gave me the courage to cut out the negativity and toxic influences in my life. Sitting there, surrounded by love and happiness, I finally knew that this was my happy ending. It wasn't perfect, and it came with scars, but it was real, and that made it beautiful. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about the future. I was grateful for the family I had found, and the strength I had rediscovered within myself. As I stood there, watching my father drunkenly stumble through the reception, a burning question echoed in my mind. How far does loyalty really go when it comes to family? It wasn't the first time I had seen my father make a fool of himself, but seeing him tarnish Sarah's special day felt like a betrayal I couldn't ignore. He was supposed to be the one to stand by her, yet he was too lost in his own turmoil. I had promised to protect her happiness, but this was a battle I didn't know how to fight. The moment I saw Brenda push him toward the bar, my worst fears became a reality. She was here not just for him, but for control, manipulating him like a puppet in her game. I couldn't stand it any longer. My father's weakness had allowed her to become a dangerous influence in our lives. I approached them, trying to keep my composure. "Dad, you need to calm down. You're embarrassing yourself," I said, hoping to get through to him. But he didn't listen, brushing me off as if I was the one causing the problem. And then, as Brenda stepped in with a sharp retort, something inside me snapped. Was I right to intervene to expose his flaws at such a crucial moment? In the past, I would have kept quiet, afraid of breaking the fragile peace. But today, I realized that I couldn't let it slide. My duty was to protect Sarah, even if it meant hurting my father in the process. What do you think, everyone? Was I wrong to step in? Or should I have kept my distance and let Sarah handle it herself? Let's hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this.